They taped over my nameplate before I made it back from lunch. I stood in that hallway with my coffee still warm, staring at a crooked strip of printer paper scotch taped over 22 years of my name on that door, and I just went quiet. Not angry quiet, more like the kind of quiet you get when something finally makes sense. My name is Carl Rutherford. I'm 54 years old. For 22 years, I was the environmental compliance manager at this company. And more importantly, I was the EPA named operator for our facilities in Louisville, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh. 3 states, federal certification, my name, my license. They didn't know what that meant. They were about to find out. The new nameplate said Pete Holloway. 1L. Guy couldn't even get that right. Pete was 34 years old, fresh off a Wharton MBA, and nephew to Dale Holloway, our CFO. The board had brought Pete in as Chief Transformation Officer with a mandate to modernize operations. What that actually meant was cutting anyone who remembered how things worked and replacing them with software subscriptions and buzzwords. I'd watched it coming for months. Every week Pete would drop a new phrase into the all-hands calls. Legacy cost center, decentralized framework, agile compliance ecosystem. Guy talked like he'd swallowed a business school textbook whole and hadn't digested any of it. First week on the job, he asked me to explain the difference between EPA permit maintenance and a regulatory audit pathway. I told him it was the difference between keeping our doors open and having federal agents chain them shut. He smiled and said I had a refreshing directness. Second week, he started calling my department overhead. Third week, my name came off the leadership retreat invite list. Fourth week, I got a calendar invite. 30 minutes, subject line, transition discussion. I didn't need to open it. I'd seen this exact movie at 2 other companies. One operation in Texas let a permit renewal date slip because they'd streamlined their compliance team. Entire Gulf Coast facility went dark for 6 weeks. EPA fines running $180,000 a day. Another CEO tried to reassign a named operator credential without authorization after firing the original holder. Ended up with a federal investigation and a $2.1 million fine before it was done. These aren't abstract risks. They're the kind of thing that ends companies. Back in March 2022, I wrote a memo about this, 5 pages. Statute references, flowcharts, plain English explanation of what an EPA named operator certification actually is, and what happens if the person holding it walks out the door without a certified replacement lined up. I sent it to the full board. I also CC'd our EPA regional compliance officer with a single line. For your awareness, internal restructuring discussions may affect named operator continuity. Not one person replied. I filed that away and kept doing my job. The meeting room had gray walls, a fake fern in the corner, and a speakerphone on the table, blinking like it had somewhere better to be. Pete was already seated when I walked in. He kept typing for a few seconds, which was his version of a power move, then he leaned back and gave me the smile. The one that says, I've already made this decision, and I just need your signature on the bottom. He thanked me for my years of contribution, said the organization was evolving, said compliance was being restructured around decentralized systems and modern frameworks, said the word agile twice in 4 sentences. Then he got to it. Your operator license is no longer essential to the way we're structured. I set my badge on the table. I said 2 words. Best of luck. Then I stood up and walked out. What I did not say, what I had zero intention of saying, was this. The company does not hold that EPA license. I do. It is registered in my name with the federal government. I am the named operator under EPA statute for 3 active industrial facilities. That designation cannot be transferred by HR paperwork. It cannot be reassigned with a click in the system. There is no backup. There is no override. The moment I revoke it, those 3 facilities are in violation of federal environmental law. Not eventually. Immediately. I walked past the HR generalist who couldn't look at me, past the break room, past the framed mission statement in the hallway with words like integrity and accountability printed in a clean sans serif font. Nobody said anything. Nobody said goodbye. I went to the coffee shop across the street, corner table by the window, black coffee, no foam, no fuss. I opened my laptop. My portal access still worked, which told me everything I needed to know about how seriously they'd thought this through. They were probably still in a meeting about the transition optics, while I was sitting there logged into the EPA named operator portal. I found the option I'd known about for years, and never once thought I'd actually use. Voluntary revocation of active operator certification. There was a warning banner. I read every word of it. It said revocation would trigger immediate non-compliance notification to all associated facilities and initiate suspension protocols pending new operator assignment. No grace period, no appeals window, effective immediately upon submission. I checked the time, 8:47 a.m. I clicked confirm. The system processed it in under 4 seconds. Revocation processed. Notification sent to associated regional compliance bodies. I sat back and drank my coffee. My inbox started moving at 8:51 a.m. First came the system confirmation from the EPA Licensing Bureau. Cold, automated, no emotion. Just federal language, doing what federal language does. Then an out-of-office reply from Pete's assistant. Apparently she was at a company wellness retreat. I almost smiled at that. Then at 9:02 a.m., something that actually made me put my coffee down. A read receipt. The memo I'd sent 2 years ago. Beverly Crane, Roy Pemberton's executive assistant, had just opened it. 6 hours later, she'd be the one calling me. But that comes later. I had one more thing to take care of. I opened a folder I'd been quietly building for 6 weeks. Every time Pete had overridden a required compliance checklist item, I logged it. Every time he waved off a documentation step with "we'll handle it in the new system," I logged that too. Timestamps, descriptions, the specific EPA regulation each one touched. I hadn't sent it anywhere yet. I didn't need to. Back when I first saw this whole thing coming, I'd set it on a 48-hour delayed send to the EPA regional office. I didn't cancel the delay. There was nothing left to cancel it for. Then I opened my calendar and found the recurring event I'd kept since 2003, renew license, auto report to state. I deleted it. Watched it disappear. That was the last thread. Everything else was already in motion. There was one more piece to this that Pete definitely didn't know about. 2 of our biggest waste disposal contractors had termination clauses buried in their agreements. If the company lost EPA certification, those contracts would self-terminate within 72 hours, no negotiation, no extension. I'd been the one who quietly managed a compliance waiver that kept those clauses dormant during our annual audit windows. I'd known for 3 weeks that waiver was set to expire. I'd scheduled the renewal on my calendar every year like clockwork. This year, I didn't touch it. I wasn't canceling anything. I wasn't calling anyone. I was just a guy who no longer worked there, sitting in a coffee shop, watching his inbox. Across town, things were starting to move. At 9:43 a.m., the EPA system automatically dispatched its first notice of investigation to company headquarters. The trigger was simple. Verified revocation with no replacement operator filed. The system flagged all 3 facilities as non-compliant under federal environmental statute and opened an enforcement review. I know what happened next because of the company's Slack. It still hadn't cut my access. Honestly, I think they forgot I existed the moment Pete called it a win. In conference room C, Pete was mid-presentation. He had a whiteboard behind him with a lopsided triangle drawn on it. Something about legacy structures trapping momentum. He was explaining to the senior leadership team how the company had been held back by depending on a single person to navigate every compliance gate. He used the phrase "single point of failure" like it was a diagnosis he'd just discovered. Neil Cassidy, a junior analyst about 3 years out of school, unmuted himself and asked the question that nobody else had the nerve to ask. Just to confirm, has someone been added to the EPA license for Louisville, Indianapolis, and Pittsburgh? Like, are we actually covered for those 3 facilities? Pete smiled at him the way adults smile at kids who ask inconvenient questions. Neil, that's exactly the thinking we're moving past. We don't need one name on a government form anymore. We have systems, protocols, a modern framework. Depending on a single individual for something this critical is exactly what we're fixing. Neil nodded and went quiet, but he didn't look convinced. He was probably already pulling up EPA statute definitions on a second tab. Down in the legal department, Lorraine Gifford had the first email from the EPA open on her screen. She read it twice, then picked up her phone and dialed the regional office. She was on hold for 11 minutes. When someone answered, they told her exactly what she was afraid to hear. As of 8:47 that morning, the company's named operator was no longer certified. All 3 facilities were in a state of legal non-operation. Enforcement review was pending. Fines were accruing at a rate of $18,000 per day per facility, starting from the moment of revocation. That was $540,000 a day, every day until a new certified operator was in place, which under EPA statute takes a minimum of 45 days, more likely 90 if audits turn up any gaps. Lorraine hung up, stared at her desk for a moment, then she went looking for the memo. She knew there had been one. She'd seen it come through back in 2022 and filed it without reading more than the subject line. She found it in under a minute, read the whole thing in about 4. By the time she got to page 3, where the statute language spelled out exactly what involuntary or voluntary revocation triggers, her face had gone completely still. She printed it, highlighted clause 9C, and walked upstairs. At 10:15 a.m., a state inspector arrived at our Louisville facility and told Renee Calloway, the field office manager, to shut everything down, not by end of shift, not by end of day, right now. He handed her a yellow carbon copy notice at the bottom, in plain type, named Operator Carl Rutherford, Revoke 0847 EST. Renee is a practical woman who has managed that facility through 3 ownership changes and 2 hurricanes. She does not panic easily. But she called HQ 5 times in a row before anyone picked up. When they finally did, she skipped the pleasantries. There is a federal inspector standing inside my facility telling me we are in violation and we need to cease operations immediately. Someone needs to tell me right now what is going on and what you're doing about it. Nobody had a good answer for her. Back in conference room C, Pete was still at the whiteboard when Renee's call patched through on the speakerphone. Her voice filled the room like a fire alarm going off in a library. We are shut down, Pete. The EPA is physically here. They are citing the operator license. Did anyone actually read what that license was before you let him walk out the door? Pete blinked, opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. We have redundancies. This is a temporary administrative issue. We just need to reassign the credentials. To who, she said. Give me a name right now. The room went quiet. That was when Lorraine walked in without knocking. Lorraine Gifford did not knock. She walked straight in, dropped a printed copy of my 2022 memo on the conference table in front of Pete, and stood there with her arms crossed. She had highlighted clause 9C in yellow. You could read it from across the room. You were warned, she said. Her voice was steady, which somehow made it worse. This memo outlines every facility dependency. The EPA named operator certification runs through Carl's name, Carl's federal standing, and Carl's digital signature. It is hard-coded into the validation chain. There is no workaround. There is no admin override. You cannot reassign it the way you reassign a company email account. Pete looked at the memo like it was written in a foreign language. Can't we just file an emergency reassignment? Get someone certified fast-tracked. Lorraine shook her head once. Minimum 45 days under statute. More likely 90 if the EPA audit turns up any gaps in the interim period. And given what I'm hearing about the past 6 weeks of compliance checklist overrides, I would not count on a clean audit. That landed. Pete's jaw tightened. A couple of the department heads shifted in their seats. There has to be a back door, Pete said. There's always a back door. There isn't, Lorraine said. I just spent 11 minutes on the phone with the regional office. They were very clear. We are non-compliant in 3 states as of this morning. Fines are running at $180,000 per day per facility. That is $540,000 a day every day until we have a certified replacement operator approved by the EPA, which does not happen on our timeline. It happens on theirs. The room did the math, silently but visibly. Pete tried one more time. What if we bring Carl back? Interim basis, just to stabilize. He'd have to reapply from scratch. Lorraine said, voluntary revocation resets the certification. The process doesn't bend because we're in a hurry. At 10:48 a.m., Indianapolis locked down. The call from that field office came in while Lorraine was still standing at the table. 2 minutes after that, Pittsburgh. 3 facilities, all dark, all accruing federal fines by the hour. The phones at headquarters stopped being manageable sometime around 11 a.m. Government area codes, client calls, legal notices, all hitting the main lines at the same time. Wanda Ostrowski at the front desk had gone through 4 sticky notepads trying to keep up with callback numbers and regulation codes she'd never heard before. Her handwriting got worse with each one. At 11:30 a.m. the lobby doors opened and 2 state inspectors walked in with a uniformed officer behind them, not auditors, not consultants. An officer with a badge. They handed Wanda a trifold packet stamped with 2 official seals and a red suspension label across the top. She buzzed the executive floor and told them, voice cracking slightly, that there were state officers in the lobby with police and they were asking for the acting VP of operations. Pet went downstairs. I'll give him credit for that much. He didn't send someone else. The lead inspector handed him a formal shutdown acknowledgement and asked him to sign. Pete's mouth opened, closed. He signed. By the time he got back upstairs, Roy Pemberton was already in the building. Roy's flight from New York had landed 20 minutes early. He'd gotten the first call from Beverly somewhere over Pennsylvania and had spent the rest of the flight reading the memo on his phone. The one I'd sent 2 years ago, the one he'd responded to with understood, "We'll keep this in mind for any future structural changes." He walked into the boardroom without stopping at his office. He didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table and looked at the faces of people who had very recently felt good about their morning. He saw Lorraine holding the memo. He saw the suspension notices on the table. He saw the legal team huddled in the corner trying to figure out if an emergency injunction was even possible. Then he looked at Pete. "Who did we just fire?" Roy said. Nobody answered fast enough. Roy walked to the window and looked down at the lobby. 2 police cruisers were still at the curb. One had its lights going, painting slow red and blue across the company name etched into the front glass. He watched that for a moment, then he turned around. "You fired the man who held the federal certification that authorized us to operate in 3 states. Roy said, not loud, not performing, just stating it. "And you did it without reading the memo he sent us 2 years ago explaining exactly what would happen if we did." Pete started to say something. Roy kept going. "I responded to that memo. I told him we'd keep it in mind. And then apparently no one kept it in mind." He set his phone on the table. "What's the total exposure?" Lorraine answered. $540,000 per day in federal fines. 45 to 90 days minimum before we can have a replacement operator certified. 3 facilities fully offline. And we have 2 major contractors who may trigger automatic termination clauses within 72 hours if we can't show restored certification." Roy looked at her. "May trigger. The waiver that kept those clauses dormant expired this week. I'm checking now to see if there's any renewal window left." There wasn't. I knew that when I left, those contractors would send their termination notices by Thursday morning. Roy turned back to Pete, and this time there was nothing ambiguous about it. "Step out," Roy said. "Roy, I can fix. Step out of this room." Pete stood up, walked to the door on legs that didn't look entirely reliable. Nobody watched him go. They were all looking at Roy, waiting to find out how bad this actually was. It was bad, and it was going to get worse before it got better. Roy sat down, pulled the memo toward him, and started reading it again from the beginning. The room stayed quiet. Somewhere down the hall, a printer was running. Outside, one of the police cruisers finally pulled away from the curb. Roy got to Clause 9C. "Read it twice." Then he looked up and said the only thing left to say, "Get me Carl Rutherford's number." My phone rang at 3:22 p.m. Beverly Crane. Roy Pemberton's executive assistant. I recognized the number because she'd called me every December for 11 years to coordinate the compliance calendar with the board schedule. She was always polite, always organized, always signed her emails with warmest regards like it was still 1998. I let it ring. Then Pete called from a number I didn't recognize. Blocked, probably, like that would change anything. I watched it buzz on the table and finished the last of my coffee. Then Beverly called again. This time I picked up. "Carl," she said, voice careful and gentle. "The way people talk when they know they're calling to ask for something they don't deserve. Mr. Pemberton was hoping to speak with you. He'd like to explore some options if you're open to it. A consulting arrangement, possibly, or an interim reinstatement to help stabilize the situation while we work through the certification process." I let a few seconds sit there between us. "You'll need a new license," I said. "Read the statute, page 12. I hung up, not hard. Just set the phone down. I drove home. Took the long way past the old industrial corridor where I'd done site inspections for the better part of 2 decades. Loading docks, holding tanks, chain link fencing with EPA permit, numbers stenciled on orange signs. I knew every one of those facilities. I knew their permit histories, their inspection records, their renewal windows. I knew which site managers actually read the compliance bulletins and which ones filed them straight into a drawer. That knowledge didn't live in any company server. It lived in my head, and I'd walked out the door with it. By Thursday morning, both waste contractors had sent formal termination notices to company headquarters. The 72-hour clause had triggered exactly the way I knew it would once the waiver expired. Roy's team had spent 2 days trying to find a legal angle to delay it. There wasn't one. The clause was clean. I'd reviewed it myself when those contracts were first drafted. Gary Holloway, Pete's cousin and Dale's son, had been installed as compliance coordinator the afternoon I left. He was 24 years old and had been with the company for 8 months as a rotational intern. His first solo submission on behalf of the department was an interim EPA permit request filed on the wrong form, missing 2 required signatures and referencing a regulation code that had been superseded 18 months earlier. It triggered a second independent EPA inquiry, completely separate from the revocation. The company now had 2 simultaneous federal investigations running in parallel. The board held an emergency session that Friday. Pete was not in attendance. His title had quietly disappeared from the company directory sometime Wednesday afternoon. Dale Holloway, the CFO and Pete's uncle, submitted his resignation the following Monday. Too much conflict of interest sitting on top of too much visible failure. The board accepted it the same day it was received. I heard most of this secondhand from people who still had my cell number and felt like they owed me a heads up. I didn't ask for any of it. I didn't need it. I was sitting at my desk at home on Thursday evening when the email came in from Halverson Environmental Consulting. I'd talked to them once at a conference years back. Nothing serious. But they'd heard about the situation. The way people in this industry always hear about things, and they were direct about it. They wanted to discuss a consulting arrangement, EPA compliance, named operator certification support, multi-state regulatory navigation. The rate they offered was $185 an hour. I wrote back one line, "I'm available, but I don't do legacy cleanup at a discount." They replied in under 5 minutes. "Name your rate." I closed the laptop, poured a cup of coffee, sat there in the quiet for a while. 22 years I held that license like it was just part of the job. Through 3 ownership changes, 2 full leadership turnovers, a dozen budget cuts, and more egos in expensive shoes than I can count. I never made noise about it. Never leveraged it. Never reminded anyone what they actually had in me. I just kept the machine legal and figured that was enough. Turns out quiet competence is invisible until the day it walks out the door. Then suddenly, it's the only thing anyone can see. They didn't fire a compliance manager. They ripped out the one piece of federal infrastructure holding 3 facilities inside the law. They just didn't know that's what they were doing. Because they never asked. Because nobody with a Wharton MBA and a mandate to modernize thinks to ask what the guy with 22 years and no LinkedIn presence actually does. I wasn't the overhead. I was the foundation. And now they get to find out what it costs to pour a new one from scratch. If you've made it this far, you already know what this story is really about. It's not about EPA licenses or federal statutes. It's about what happens when a company decides that experience is a liability and replaces it with confidence that has nothing behind it. Most of you watching this have been that guy at some point. The one who kept things running without ever getting credit for it. The one who got pushed aside for someone younger with shinier credentials and a better haircut. Here's what I want you to take from this. Your knowledge has weight. Your years have value, and if the people around you can't see that, it doesn't mean you've lost anything. It means they have no idea what they're about to lose. You don't have to make noise to have leverage. You just have to know what you're actually holding. If this story hit close to home, hit the like button and subscribe. There are more stories where this came from, and every one of them starts with someone underestimating the wrong person.